Hello, and welcome to the Chronicles of Dragonlance podcast, where we go book by book, chapter by chapter, through the lengthy library of Dragonlance books.
Theoretically lengthy library. Someday.
With me, as always, is my good friend Shivam, who you already heard.
Hello. If they're in this deep with us, 16 episodes or whatever into the third book or whatever of Winter Night, come on, they know who we are.
Yeah.
And if you are picking this episode, if this show up right now, I don't understand, but thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us on this ride.
I encourage you to go back, hear the earlier ones as you read through the Chronicles and the Legends.
Yeah. That's actually kind of the upside of this story is that, like, anytime if you pick up Chronicles of Legends, you can just read along with us and it'll be great.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because it's an evergreen content.
Yep. And so today we, as Shivam said, we're in book 3, chapter 9 of Dragons of Winter Night, Tanis Captured.
When we last left our hero, he was in an alleyway about to get stabbed by a very angry elf who was like, "You dragon army scum, I hate you, you're going to die." And so Tanis gets saved by Kitiara. She's finally here after being Chekhov's gun on the wall for like 1.5 books. She has finally arrived.
She saved his life.
The interstitial art for this one is weird because, like, when you looked at the cover of Winter Night, the dragon helm looks sick. It looks really, really cool. When you look at the interstitial art of the dragon helm, it looks like
it's like body horror.
Yeah, it looks like one of those sea monsters you would see from old D&D, or you know what it actually reminds me of, and this is going to age me a billion years. If you go back to NES wrestling,
the Amazon.
Yeah, that's what that looks like. That's a reference from 1984.
Amazon or Starman are the two best characters in that game.
They're the only ones you remember. And then the dude who is basically Hulk Hogan, but not Hulk Hogan.
Yeah. Anyway, this is not the 1984 wrestling podcast.
Anyways.
The interstitial art is the Dragon Lord helm, and it's really creepy looking. It's been consistent, right? We've seen pictures in like the first book of other Dragon Lords, and they've all had this helm. So I wonder, this must be an Elmore design that just carried through?
The Elmore didn't do the interstitials, remember?
I know, but he did.
The interstitials were done by another artist, but I think they had created interstitial art for first book and then just ended up using it throughout whenever they needed it.
Yeah. Just, it's been consistent. I doubt it would be interesting to go to flip through any of the recent stuff that came out about Dragonlance and see if the heads are still the same.
In the Weiss and Hickman books in the olden days, any of the ones by TSR, they kind of like reusing these arts just because they're classic and iconic. But in the newer Dragonlance books, the publisher went and got some random clip art or something. It kind of sucks. I hate it. But that being notwithstanding, here we are. Tanis is on the ground staring up at Kitiara, and Kitiara's like, "Well, now, an officer in my own army? How did this happen?"
Yeah, she didn't even know. She's like, "I should review my troops more often."
Huh. You would think I would know who's working for me. But I mean, look, she's a general of an army. Why would she know it all?
He's like a high-ranking officer or something, isn't he?
Yes. Okay. In that case, yeah, he should be known. Like, it should be reasonable for him to.
And it makes me wonder, do her other officers know that she's a woman? Of course, no, they have to, because doesn't he get in some sort?
Oh, no, everybody knows. Everybody knows.
Yeah. I wonder if she knows as well. She must know as well. And she's just, we know she knows because she mentioned it to the spies who were following them to keep an eye out for these two brothers and then half-elf.
Wait, knows what? I think I got lost in there.
She must know that Tanis isn't in her army because she knows where he has been because she's had people following him. So she knows that he's not a member of this army. Like, I just made this realization today, right now, is that all this talk is a ruse because she's had people tailing the party the entire time. And like, when would Tanis have had time to leave the party and join her army and then move up the ranks? Never.
Yes, that's true. However, he could have also been on like some kind of subterfuge type thing. But you're right, though. This is a little bit weird because it's like, okay, look, Kitiara is acting genuinely surprised here. Like, oh, hey, like in the last chapter, she's like, Tanis, it is you. But we also know Kitiara is not, she's not the most up and up with person. She's definitely had a party tailing her brothers. Now, mind you, Tanis has a beard and Tanis does look different. So she might not necessarily know that they might have just found another elf to hang or travel with or whatever, because he doesn't look like Tanis did when she was there. But she would know exactly who the officers in her army are.
Mm-hmm.
And she would know, having been tailing her brothers, what is going on. But the chapter also kind of gives you the feeling that she's like, I think secretly, Kit is still totally down with like suspending her disbelief to allow Tanis to surprise her like this. Because she's like, oh, this works out in my favor. So I'm going to let it roll.
I think that's it. I think she knows he's not there, but she still wants Tanis, right?
Right.
And so she's willing, as long as she gets what she wants, she really doesn't seem to care how she gets it. She doesn't even seem to care about the battles as we read on. Like, Tanis drops somehow about the Green Gemstone Man, and then she's ready to drop everything and just be like, hey,
yeah,
let's go get him, that guy, because if we get the Green Gemstone Man, none of this army stuff matters, and I don't give a crap about it.
Exactly.
I just want to win, and that's how you win.
Dude, her goal is power.
Mm-hmm.
Her goal is to be the boss in charge or whatever it takes. If Tanis is going to like lie to her and pretend to be in her army or whatever, she's just like, who cares, dude? My goal is being served.
Yeah.
And I get to sleep with my ex-boyfriend. It's fine.
As long as it gets her where she's going, she doesn't care. As soon as it inconveniences her, though,
that's when the claws will come out. Yeah.
Yeah. So here she is. She's like, I can't believe you're there. And then she picks him up and says, hey, let's get you to my rooms nearby. We'll patch you up and then we'll ... talk.
I think one of my favorite paragraphs here is like, this really shows where Tanis's head is at. The gleaming night blue dragon scale armor of the High Lord suited her well. Tanis caught himself thinking, it was tight-fitting, emphasizing the curves of her long legs. I'm like, okay, so here it is, his literal biggest number one enemy. And he's like, damn, that shows off that booty real well. It's like, bro.
On the list of things that are important and you should be thinking right now, how tight her butt is not in the top 100.
Dude, Tanis is like completely just, it's like somebody cast a spell on him and he's just befuddled. You know, he's like fully like, this chapter is kind of hilarious objectively. Tanis just gets saved from getting shanked by an elf. Kitiara picks him up and he just suddenly like stun locked and he's like, oh, A, you're alive. B, you're the boss of the dragon army. C, hey, baby.
It's so unlike Tanis. The entire rest, everything leading up to this has shown Tanis be like a leader and able to make decisions on the fly and do those things. And here, all of a sudden,
which is what makes it funny,
we're just seeing a completely different guy.
Yeah.
It's not Tanis.
Well, this shows you the power of
a crush.
Of hormones, right? Like, homie is just, look at his poise, his power, his control. And this is kind of the author's way of saying, look, this guy is not perfect. He's definitely got a weakness, and that weakness has curly black hair, right? Like, Tanis is definitely not at his best around Kitiara. We got a lot of those insinuations early on from, like, you know, the brothers and from the other people in the party. And we now understand why everybody's like joshing around with him about his relationship with Kit. And like suddenly his relationship switches to the very chaste and demure Laurana. But now we see the other half of like what homie's been trying to hide from, his human side, which is much more pants driven. Tanis is like literally almost the whole first half of this chapter. Tanis is just like, whoa, I can't, huh?
Yeah.
It's like almost gone to caricature tier of just like complete segfault.
Well, and the one thing that does highlight is that she's not phased at all.
No, not at all.
Like, she should be just as shocked and stunned as Tanis is, which again, I think leads into the fact that she knows he was
just joshing with her,
skulking around town.
Yeah.
She's just leading him on because it gets her where she wants. Like, if she did know they were there and she wanted to know what they were doing, this is the best way to go about doing it, as opposed to having them arrested and thrown in a dungeon and dealing with that.
Oh, yeah.
If she had ran into Karamon, I think it would have worked out the same way.
Minus the sleeping together. But yeah, basically, it's like,
Yeah, minus that part, she would have just been like, "Hey, brother, it's so good to see you. What's going on? What do you know? Where's Raceland?" And she still would have gotten everything she wanted.
Yeah. It's really interesting, actually, because you're right. Like, when I came into this chapter, I had a completely different framing in mind. But now that you mention it, it is so patently obvious that Kit knows exactly what's going on and is playing the game to her advantage anyways.
Yeah.
She's like, look, man, fine. You're here. Fine. I'll just get some. And it will still, this does not derail what I'm trying to do in any way, shape, or form.
Well, and she asks questions to find out, right?
Oh, yeah.
She's like trying to get to where, like, oh, are you here to attack me? Are you here to attack the city? Right? She's trying to find these things out by simply just chatting with him and him being befuddled. He never should have mentioned the green gemstone man. Like, how did that even come up?
Yeah.
But she gets it out of him.
Right? She grabs him. They go to their room. She tried to kiss him, and he's like, no. Whoa, hang on. We're in public. None of that. And then Kit's like, excuse me? If anybody else tried to tell me no, I would shank them. End of story.
Which is wild to say. Like, she's just basically admitting that if I sexually assault someone and they don't like it, I will kill them. Like, this is not a good person.
Well, no, she's the head leader of the dragon. I mean, like, in the old days, alignments meant something. And she is definitely lining up in the evil side of things. She's Kit. She's had to get her power, how she's gotten her power. And we hear hints about this in Brothers in Arms, which is like the story which talks about her rise in the Dragon Army. And like, it's not like she's sleeping her way to the top. She's just very ambitious and is not afraid to use whatever assets she needs to use to get ahead. And she is in a very dangerous position. She's like a young, pretty woman in a gross military army full of people with no scruples and no like compunction. So yeah, she's definitely come up in the, kill or be killed kind of mentality. And it's like, look, dude, if I feel like getting laid, she's had to become hard, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, she's like, screw it. I'll shank you too. Like, why should the guys get to be just the thugs all the time? It does give you kind of a vibe of her personality there of like, hey, she feels like doing something. She is in charge. Who are you going to say no to?
Yeah. And she's like, it's only you, Tanis, who would get away with doing this.
Right.
They get to her room. She's in like the nicest inn in Flotsam. It's called the Salt Breeze. The innkeeper is like falling over himself to get whatever. Yo, what do you need? Can I help you with this? Can I help you with this?
Well, yeah, because she's got a dragon. I'm just saying, if someone drives up in an Abrams tank, you're going to bend over and give him what he wants. Right? Like, come on. But yeah, so she's like, bring us some wine and some glasses. I love that every time you're reading a book, it's always like, bring us your finest wine, innkeeper. It's never, bring us some swill. Just bring me whatever crap you've got moldering in the back. I don't care, dude. Like, I just need a drink.
Bring me your finest well drinks.
Yeah, right? Like, come on, dude. Give me some of that Stoli and let's call it a day.
She sits down and she does this thing where she's like, Tanis, take off my boots. Where is that? Let me see if I can find it.
I've got it right here. She goes to the innkeeper and she's like, look, if you show your face in this room after you bring the wine, I'll cut off your ears, Kitiara said pleasantly. But as she spoke, she drew a gleaming dagger from her belt. The innkeeper turned pale, nodded, and left hurriedly. Kit laughed. There, she said, wiggling her toes in their blue silken hose. Silken hose? She's got silken socks in her freaking dragon army armor? Okay. Where do they get silk from? There, she said, wiggling her toes in their blue silken hose. Now, I'll take off your boots. And Tannis like, I really must go, Tannis said, sweating beneath his armor. My company commander will be missing me. And she's like, but I'm the commander of your company, buddy. And tomorrow, you'll be the commander of your company, or higher if you like. Now sit down. The benefits of power, right? Tannis could do nothing but obey, knowing, however, that in his heart, he wanted to do nothing but obey. She sits there and she pulls off his shoes and she's asking him like, oh, I'm sorry about the reunion. How's everybody? How's Sturm? I'm not surprised you two got separated, fishing for answers here, just like you said. And she prattled on, but Tanis ceased to listen. He could only look at her. He had forgotten how lovely she was, how sensual and inviting. And it's like, uh-oh.
Earlier it says, my boots, she said to Tanis, smiling. Swallowing, giving her a weak smile in return, Tanis gripped her leg in his hands. This had been an old game of theirs, him taking off her boots. It had always led to...
Yeah.
Tanis tried to keep himself from thinking about that.
I think the funny thing about that is that Weiss puts an exclamation point there at the end of that, which is a very much a kind of prudish, like, excuse me, sir. She doesn't use exclamation points very often, so it's noticeable when she does, especially in the narrator voice.
Mm.
And it's like, oh, excuse me. And I'm like, oh, Margaret. But this is interesting because this scene is one of Tracy's famous little notions of the boot scene, which is his Mormon prudishness kind of coming through here, which is like, I love it when we were watching a Star Trek episode, Captain Kirk is seducing some alien queen or whatever, and then it cuts to see like Scotty talking to Spock or whatever, and then it cuts back and you see Kirk putting his boots back on. As in, like, we know what happened, but it's just him putting his boots on for the networks. It's just his gimmick here is like, look, dude, writing about sex is gauche and not nearly as interesting as sex itself. And so let people fill it in however they feel like.
And it does the same thing that those TV shows did, where adults get the reference.
Yeah.
So they know what's happening and they can fill in the blank, but it doesn't stop younger people from watching it and knowing.
Exactly.
A younger kid really does just see a person putting their boots on.
Right.
They don't know what it implies. It's the same here.
And I think that's fine.
I could read this as a child and not have any idea. Oh, something's going on. I'm not quite sure what. They took boots on, they took boots off. And an adult reading it would know, oh, I know what all this is leading up to. This is all foreplay.
Basically.
It's a good way of making your book so that it has a wider audience. It goes for adults and children.
This was 1984.
Yeah, Dragonlance was for children.
D&D and Dragonlance were basically aimed at kids and teens. And also, fantasy was not given the kind of adult respect that it could get away with. Like, yeah, there were vampire novels and Anne Rice and stuff, and like Conan the Barbarian, but it was a less explicit time than now. Nowadays, you would have things like, I've read some of these books that are out there today that are pretty
romantasy.
Oh yeah. Yeah, like they're just like explicit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Brad, go for it. But we just remember the times these were written for. It's okay to have books for every age. But yeah, so this whole thing here is really interesting because Kit's going back to the way they used to be, and Tanis is flustered, so he's following along, but he also wants to hit that. But you can see who's in control here because Kit's also, like you said, pumping him for information subtly. Like, hey, where are these people that the queen has told me to care about?
Yeah. They have their hookup. He gives in. He's only happy to, right?
I think the funny one was like the last part of this little segment is the innkeeper's like, what, the third guy this week? Lots of boots being seen.
When the innkeeper knocked on the door, he received no answer. Shaking his head in admiration, this was the third man in as many days. He set the wine upon the floor and left. She has appetites.
Yeah.
And as you said, she's not going to let anything get in the way of those appetites.
But it's also like, this is part of her way of flexing her power. She's been a person who's just been without power for a long time, and she has been fighting her whole life to gain respect, to gain power, and to just not be beholden to anybody. So this is part of her way of just flexing. Like, hey, I've made it in life such that I'm so independent. I can go anywhere I want, do anything I want, do anyone I want. And nobody can say no to me because
I'm the boss.
I hit the peak of where I need to be. She's like, there's one person in the world higher than me and I'm going to kill him. So who cares?
She's pumping him for information. And then we find out that she's racist. She's like, hey, tell me about my brothers. Are they with you? Last time I saw them, you were escaping from Tarsus with that elf woman. And he's like, that was you. Of course. And then she says, I like the beard, she said, stroking his face. It hides those weak, elvish features. How did you get into the army? So again, we're seeing the subtle racism.
Yeah.
And she's pumping him for information.
Yeah.
How did you get to Flotsam? How did you get in my army?
To be fair, that is a very legitimate question. But like, how are you an officer in my army?
Without me knowing.
Yeah. Like, I feel like that at least is a very fair question for her to be asking. Hey, buddy, I'm your boss. You want to talk a little about how this happened?
Why haven't you seen me sooner, right? If you were in my army this whole time and you know I'm your commander, why didn't you just come to me?
Right. she's not hiding from the officer corps.
Yeah.
They have meetings. They have like strategy sessions. They would all know that she's the boss. So obviously she's very well aware that he is just lying through his teeth. God, dude, now that you said this, I can't believe this thought literally never occurred to me in the 30 years of me reading this stupid book.
Same.
Like, I can't believe she played him the whole damn time. Like, that's so crazy to me. But yeah, she's like, Raceland's still wearing the red robes. And he's like, I guess, Tanis muttered. I haven't seen him. That won't last long, Kit said complacently. He's like me. Raceland always craved power.
Well, and she was in the dream, so she would have seen him with the black robes.
Oh, she was in the dream. So she's already knows every part of this.
It goes on here where she says, he makes up something weekly. Oh, I was captured and a dragon guy convinced me to join the army. And she just lets it slide because she knows. I feel like she knows at this point.
Yeah. Because that is the lamest excuse ever.
This is the part that really makes it obvious. Is she's like, what about you? What are you doing here so far from the action? Why, I'm here for the same reason you are, Kit answered, opening her eyes wide. Searching for the green gemstone man, of course. She doesn't know what he's doing here. She doesn't know that he's searching for the green gemstone man, but in case he does know, she's going to drop it on him.
Yeah.
And he just blurts it out.
But what she's saying there is also like, the reason any of my Dragon Army folks are down here is because they're searching for the green gemstone man. And if you're one of my Dragon Army folks, you are also doing that.
Yeah.
And why would you not know where I am, buddy?
He blurts it out that, oh, I saw Barum last night. And she jumps up and says, like, where? And he's like, oh, I don't know. I didn't get a good description of the green gemstone man. And then here's where we, the reader, learns why Barum is important. He's wanted by the Dark Queen herself.
Yeah.
All this army stuff doesn't matter. It's a distraction to find the green gemstone man. The Dragon Lords could lose every battle, but if they found the green gemstone man, Takhisis wins.
Exactly. The green gemstone man, we don't know necessarily what his gimmick is yet, but he's a dude who somehow managed to survive multiple ways of dying on screen. So there's obviously something going on there. What did she say? It's like the world would be at our feet, basically, right? Like,
I have the quote right here. It says, just think, Kitiara whispered in his ear, her breath hot and moist against his skin. If we found him, you and I, we would have all of Kryn at our feet. The Dark Queen would reward us beyond anything we ever dreamed. You and I, together always, Tanis. Let's go now. And here's where Tanis fails his temptations, right? He's tempted and then he thinks, why not? What has the world ever done for me except deny and belittle me? I could be together with Kitiara forever, happy. Oh, it can wait one more day. Green Gemstone Man isn't going anywhere. And then they go back to knocking boots.
Yeah. I think that is where Tanis realizes that he's kind of lost the plot here. And he's like, whoa, no, if we go out now, she will find everybody. So let's sit and kind of just delay and stall her out a bit with an excuse that he's got ready at hand.
But Kitiara knows because Kitiara smiled and with a sigh, lay back down. She's got him wrapped around her finger at this point. She got everything she wanted.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
One more day, you're just going to fold. I got you.
It is absurd that it took me this long to realize just how easily Tanis just failed that check so hard. His willpower was just evaporated by this girl.
Yeah. And I think she knows more than it's ever let on, right?
Oh, we find out later that she's basically been knowing the whole time.
Yeah.
None of this is news to her.
None of her reactions would be what they are if she had no idea he was in the city or what he was doing.
Yeah.
She seems to know all that stuff, and this just seemed like a better way. For all we know, she planned for her to rescue him. What's to say she didn't do that? She hasn't been tailing them. And then when at the first time Tanis was by himself, she arranged for her to meet with him. It could be a coincidence, but it also could very well. It seems like when you read it and you think two steps ahead, it also kind of, and from what we've read previously, that maybe she knew all along. And this was just her chance to get back with her old ex-boyfriend and see if she could have her cake and eat it too.
Hmm.
And that's how chapter 9 ends.
Yeah, this is quite the heavier chapter. Like, I was initially thinking it was just some fancy fluff chapter because, like, that's the way it was when I was a kid, and now it's like, much deeper than let on.
But before we get to the next chapter, which is chapter 10, the High Clerist Tower, the Knighting, want to thank everyone for being a listener. And if you'd like to support the podcast, you can give us positive reviews on your podcatcher of choice and Apple Podcasts. And you can contribute at our Patreon page. Benefits include seeing show notes, getting a shout out, and you can find details at www.patreon.com Chronicles of Dragonlance podcast. And one of those benefits is the shout out. So I want to give, if you're $5 and up, you get a shout out. Shout outs to our $5 patrons: Alexander Louis, Nicholas Campo, Swar Dango, Chris Andrew, Jason Bledsoe, Brandon Brown, John Merlino Jr., Jane Newwolf, Andrew Arsenal, Todd Fisher, Iskander Bilge, Matthew Williams, Kevin Dawn, Eric Schold, Parish Patel, Robert Fisher, Tom Bertram, Scott Williams, The Nine Duncan, and Ilya Tulich. If I said any of those names wrong, please send me a DM and we'll correct them. Thank you so much. We really appreciate all the support.
That list might actually get long enough that we can't read it in the episode. That'll be pretty neat.
That would be very cool if we had so many supporters we had to change how it worked.
Yeah. It reminded me of my friend's watch channel where, like, he does watch repairs on YouTube, and he originally, in the older episodes, he would read out the full long list of all the patrons surviving and supporting him, and now it's so long that it just goes by in a really quick scroll going all the way up, because it's just like, there's too many of you.
Yeah.
But now, chapter 10, with this lovely picture of the High Clerist Tower here, called the High Clerist Tower, the Knighting. And we're shifting scenes to Solamnia, going back to the Sturm story arc. This gives us a bit of background on Palanthas, the Tower of the High Clerist, and what's going on over here on this side of the world. And effectively, so Venus Solamnis founded Palanthas a long time ago as a small little fishing village up here and built around where the Tower of High Sorcery was. When he had his knights, or rather, Palanthas had already existed as like an ogre's kind of harbor, safe harbor for them. And then they went and converted it into a city. When he had his knights, and the knights were sort of de facto control over Palanthas, he went and built in the past. The only path to get to Palanthas was through this giant. They built this giant fortress right in the middle and slammed it down to kind of shut the gate to make sure that nobody could actually get in. Because of this, Palanthas has become a rich, wealthy, and soft city with like no kind of protections or armor or anything. People just kind of live happily and laugh and whatever, because the Knights of Solamnia, even now, even after the Cataclysm, are still manning the tower.
I was just going to read this quick quote. It was a soft city, a city of wealth and beauty, a city that had turned its back upon the world to gaze with admiring eyes into its own mirror.
Yeah.
And as we learned from the previous chapters, they're kind of upset that the knights are here at all, because they're like, hey, you're messing with our negotiations here.
You're ruining the vibe, man. Because Palanthas is also the biggest harbor and like most of Solamnia is inland. So like it is very easy to lock off a lot of the trade for Solamnia by cutting off Palanthas, I guess. It's funny, in the olden days, they couldn't decide whether it was THAS or THUS, and they eventually settled on AS because all of the Thasses in Dragonlance end in AS. It's just one of those things that's always, like, if you want to get old people, like, pettily angry at each other, you just try to decide which way to spell this. But it's basically been settled at this point. Because, Salamthus and Solamnus and an us, so it's like, does Palanthas? But no, this city has basically always been a knight city and a mage's city simultaneously. And the knights and the mages hate each other. So it's pretty rad. But this Tower of High Clerist is this big, gigantic, very tall tower that was built to be the main temple of the knights because they're a religious order, but also the headquarters of the Knights of the Sword. And the Knights of the Sword, whose boss was the High Clerist. The way the Knights of Solamnia work is the Knights of the Rose are the top caste of knights. So basically, they're the noblemen, they're the leaders, they're the bosses, like we discussed. They have the richest armor and they have the most lifer knight status, kind of like the generals. The Knights of the Rose are both the administrators and the support staff, the clerics, the clergymen, the healers, and all the people who do a lot of the kind of like engineering and a lot of the running of the army. And then the Crown Knights make up the bulk of the army. And each of them has their own patron. The Crown Knights fall under Habakkuk, the god of sea. The Knights of the Sword were under Kiri-Jolith, the god of war. And of course, the Knights of the Rose were under Paladin himself. So the High Clerist Tower here, it was basically built to be a gigantic fortress of defense for the Knights of the Rose, while simultaneously being a temple for Kiri-Jolith, also for like, the clerics of Paladin and Habakkuk and whatever. We talked about this because like we went into depth about this in the new Dragonlance novels, because this tower is a huge part of that story. So I'm very familiar with the backstory of it. But a lot of the major events in Dragonlance happen right here because it is such a convenient location and such a breathtaking kind of spot.
It immediately goes from giving this little background to talking about the dragon armies that are surrounding and how they're commanded by the Dark Lady, who's the most beloved by the Dark Queen. They're just waiting out the knights, knowing that they'll need food or support sooner or later. It's funny because this chapter 2 turns out to largely be about Kitiara.
Yeah. Well, she hovers heavily over it, right?
Yeah, where she knows that they don't have very much food. She knows that they have dragonlances, and she has left the army currently to go to the east to search for the Green Gemstone Man.
Yeah, they basically put the thing under siege so that it would be like, all right, guys, you can't get any food from Palanthas because they're not giving you food. And also the snows are blocking the passes. And you're not getting food from the fields because we're in the fields. So good luck and die. But there was also a really famous phrase and legend that it comes up in Dragonlance quite a bit, which is that the tower had never fallen while men of faith held it. This comes up in Dragon's Summer Flame because it's like they're staring at the Dark Knight of Takhisis coming in, and they're like, yeah, well, this tower hasn't fallen while men of faith defend it. And the other person's like, yeah, but that's because no men of faith have ever attacked it, and now we're screwed. It's a really one of those iconic phrases of Dragonlance that shows up quite a bit. It's not the full headquarters because that's over on Sancris, but this is definitely one of the major outposts of the Knights. And so while we're here,
after talking about the Dark Lady and what's going on with her army, we shift to inside the High Clerist Tower.
We do get introduced to a character who does come up later. We meet Bakaris, who is the lieutenant of Kitiara, who has basically been left as her second in command in charge of the fields while she's out on business. So
his bravery in battle and his handsome face had done much to advance him in the Dark Lady's favor.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder if he was one of the 3 in the last 3 nights.
Well, no, because he's up in the fields. He's not down in Flotsam. She's like, yeah, they found the dragonlances. And he's like, children's stories. Like, yeah, but dragons were a children's story too. And I got one right here, buddy. But yeah, so we switch back over and we discover that inside the tower for the past few months, Sturm and his armies and Derek and his armies had marched from Sancris to the Tower of the High Clerist, and they really, really hate each other now.
Yeah, it was bad before, and now it's worse.
Yeah. Like now they've got 2 separate camps inside that are basically pointing sword at each other all the time. You're either on Derek's side or Sturm's side. And Derek is slowly losing his mind. He's gone power mad. He's gone completely like unhinged. He's trying to threaten Palanthas into giving them food. And they're like, we don't want to deal with you. You're crazy.
It sounds like he's risen to the level of his own incompetence here.
Yeah.
Because he's just made a number of bad decisions. He's alienated the city of Palanthas. That didn't have to be that way. He's alienated the entire second army, right? He's alienated a third of his forces, one whole order. Of the 3 orders, he's completely alienated.
Yeah, the bulk of the people who actually fight for him.
And it's only because Sturm has stepped in, and Sturm hasn't tried to Sturm recognizes the order of command here. If anything, he's going to obey it, but he's tried to make it so that Derek's damage isn't as bad, right? It's only because Sturm stepped in and tried to placate Palanthas and Derek that they're getting any food at all. It's 2 armed camps inside the tower. They hate each other. And Lord Alfred, who's the guy, the 3rd guy in charge, right? He's in the middle order of knights, right? He's like, oh man, I think I shouldn't have sided with Derek. He's insane.
No kidding, buddy. No kidding.
It's strangely relevant because there are lots of times where there are good people who are good leaders, but then the situation changes and they're not able. So Derek was fine when there wasn't unarmed conflict. Lord Alfred's politicking might have been fine because there was no armed conflict.
Yeah.
But like the world they live in and that they became experts at has now changed suddenly around them, and they're not able to deal with this new situation.
Yeah.
All the ways that they thought they were going to advance, that's how they think things happen. And it's like, that's true if the world hadn't changed. But now
Yeah.
the decisions that you made that advanced you and made you look good, you keep making those decisions without taking into fact that the world's changed. And so now they're biting you in the ass and you don't know
Right.
that the world has changed, or you don't realize that reacting poorly to a changed situation.
Think about it. We've been told over and over again the knights are hidebound and like driven by the measure and just super lockstep with politics from 2,500 years ago or whatever. But they're not like able to pivot to the fact that there's a new berserker army out their door doing lightning strikes and doing just like these guys came up in an era where the knights were decimated down to a very small force. So it's kind of like they grew up being officers in an army that was never an army.
And was never needed. Like they didn't need an army.
Yeah, they didn't have to do anything.
It was all like cosplay. They were all playing.
It was just going to the country club with your buddies is what it was. And now there's a war and they're just not the men for the job.
Yeah. And it doesn't help that Derek legitimately seems to be losing his mind. Like this chapter states over and over, his lust for power eats away at his rationality. And again, no one can do anything because of the measure. Like they can't just, I can't believe there's no like way in your organizing text to remove someone who could be like wrong or evil or corrupt. So
yeah.
And so when news came that Sturm was vindicated, it destroyed the peace in the camp and Derek's sanity.
Oh yeah, Derek just snapped in half. He's like, remember, Laurana goes much later to join them. And when she does, yeah, I think that paragraph is awesome. News of Sturm's vindication struck this dry and crackling forest like a bolt of lightning. As Gunther had foreseen, this completely shattered Derek's hopes. What Gunther had not foreseen was that this would sever Derek's tenuous hold on sanity. GG's, buddy.
I really wish that there had been time to actually, instead of telling us all this happened, I wish we could have seen it happen.
Gotten that novel?
Or just a chapter.
Yeah, like that would have been a sick chapter or two of Sturm having to deal in politic with this group and like going to...
And watching Derek's followers slowly realize that they backed the wrong horse. Watching Sturm's followers gain ever more trust and respect for him. It would have been great reading. And it's just a shame that we just have, 2 pages of basically, let me catch you up from the narrator's point of view. Yeah.
I think that would have been very cool. But also, like, the reality of this book at the time was they had to write it really, really fast. One of the nice things is that these gaps that they left did allow us to get cool books later, but they never went back to this because I think it would have been cool at the time, and I think it would be weird post facto. I think if I was editing and had to cut chunks out, that would probably have been my cut too. But I think it would have been really fun to see. It would have been really fun to watch these guys descend. But you do get the general idea though, because like it fits his pattern of behavior. Derek has been crazy the whole time.
Yeah.
And we saw that from the beginning of this book till now. So it's like,
it is not a surprise that he has gone this way.
Yeah, it's not a surprise. It's just kind of like, we're just going to skip past the boring bit or whatever. But we're back here. And now there's been this gigantic storm. All the knights are cold and miserable. But Sturm has been vindicated. So that means he is going to become a knight and has to go through the actual ceremony of knighthood. I like them showing this part a lot because this is both really good for story building and also for the role playing. So the folks who are playing along can know how this knight's ceremony would go. But the general gist of it is, so Lord Alfred, who is the head of the Knights of the Sword, is going to be knighting Sturm and make him join the Knights of the Crown. Because even though technically Sturm is a Knight of the Rose, or he's a hereditary Knight of the Rose, he still has to kind of go through the ranks properly. And so, they sit there above the crest of like the battlements here, and they're in the big like courtyard of the tower. Alfred is sitting there in the center of a circle of knights, dressed in his battle armor with his red cape fluttering over his shoulders, and he's got his antique sword, which is like, his sort of being like, he could be a Rose Knight if he wanted to, but he wanted to be the head of the Sword Knights, so he's still a very high-ranking member. And it's got the Kingfisher, Rose, and Crown, which are the symbols of the knighthood that were told over and over and over again. And he sits there and he's like, man, I was really hoping this would be a way to bring all the knights together, but that is the most Pollyanna thing I've read in this book, because obviously Derek and his friends are not going to be hanging out here while his mortal enemy is given vindication, because that's just like insult to injury, right?
Everyone in Derek's command is gone. So that means that there's no Knights of...
There's no Rose Knights.
There's no Rose Knights there.
Yeah, which is unheard of, precedent breaking. All three orders need to be represented when you're becoming a knight.
Talk about respecting the measure, right?
Yeah.
They all respected the measure enough not to depose a crazy person, but that crazy person has no respect for the measure for probably one of their oldest rites.
Yeah, like one of the true traditions.
And they're not there when it's like, you should be there.
It's crazy. The thing that's wild, though, is Sturm comes out of the chapel and he's been praying all night. So one of the interesting things is that the bottom tiers of the Tower of the High Clerist are open, but the top tiers have been sealed off since the Cataclysm because of clerical magic and other crazy things. But down at the bottom, they still have the chapel, and Sturm comes out of that, having spent his night in vigil, and he is surrounded by his guard of honor. But his guard of honor is not other knights. It is Laurana, Flint, and Tasselhoff, and our old friends have showed up. And they have his spurs and his armor and whatever.
To be fair, Laurana, Flint, and Taz surely live up to the ideals of being knights.
Oh, yeah.
If not being knights. Like,
and also, like, why wouldn't you want your best friends and boon companions to be here for you? It's like when you see militaries getting, like people in the army these days, when they get their pins for promotion, it's their family that puts the pins on them. So it fits.
Yeah. And the knights haven't been there for Sturm.
Yeah, no.
Realistically, they haven't been there.
No, they really haven't.
Laurana and Flint and Taz and, I mean, Raceland has showed up more for Sturm
right?
than the Knights ever have. And, like, that's a low bar to clear.
Flint mutters to Taz that he wishes Tanis was here, which is true. Tanis would have been perfect for this too, right?
Well, Tanis would have wanted to be here.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
It is a weird friendship that they have, but it is a friendship.
It's a weird friendship, but Sturm is literally one of his best friends. For what it's worth, these guys have been friends for decades and are just, they grew up together. Like, yeah, Tanis might be closer to Flint than he is to Sturm, but Sturm is his best friend, man. Like, they're all his best friends.
Yeah.
This is his crew. Of course, he would want to be there for his most important moment. He would have gone for Raceland if Raceland had a ceremony for his robing, right?
It's one of those things where when you join like a friend group or you have a group of friends and you just have one friend who's odd, and then like a new person comes in and they're like, man, all your friends are really cool. But have you noticed that like Todd is always doing X? Objectively, X is a weird thing.
Yeah.
But you guys have been friends for so long that it's like, nah, man, that's just Todd. That's just how he is. That's not weird. And that's what, like, Sturm is weird. And us reading the book, we can see, man, Sturm is really weird.
He's got a lot of just like obsessions and a lot of manias, but he's also like, he's theirs.
And he's true to their friends. He never abandons them. Yeah, I know he's weird, but he's my friend.
Yeah, he's my weird, right? Like, who are you, buddy? Like,
yeah, he's always been that way. It's not weird because that's who he is.
It's not weird. It's just Sturm. We love Sturm, and we're not going to like. Yeah, it's one of those things. Like they'll yell at each other, but if you start talking crap, they will pull their swords out and point them at you. You know, like not at their buddy. Sturm might have weird behaviors and weird just obsessions, but he's never once turned his back on anybody in that crew.
Even when they've been disagreed with.
Yeah.
Right? When they've gone against his wishes, he's still kept with the party, right? Like when Tanis told him over and over again, hey, Raceland's in our group. He's part of our party. And Sturm's like, oh man, that's going to hurt us in the end. But okay, you're right.
Yeah, exactly. But that also shows like their friends group is like, yeah, even Sturm might be weird, but we've also got Raceland, who's a literal crazy person. We'll never like Raceland is stabbing us in the front, not in the back, and we will still stick with him, you know, because like it's like, what do you like? Okay,
Raceland
like,
is stabbing us in the front.
Yeah, it's like he's not going to waste his time walking around you. But yeah, so it's nice to see that at least he's got his people there.
We learn about a bunch of new armor that Laurana has.
Yeah, and we see it on the cover of the book where she's got custom-made Solamnic knight's armor, which is just one of the greatest innovations of all time. But she's also like, she's a soldier, and Gunther's going to make sure that A, she's protected while they're out at war, and B, that she looks properly representative of what he needs. Because her clothes are probably real ragged at this point. And so he's like, no, if you're going to be a representative of the knighthood, I need you to have some gear.
Yeah. Lord Gunther made her some custom armor. We learn that she wants to return to Sandcrest, and she'd been ordered to do so by Gunther, but she ignored it because the situation in the tower was so bad and the size of the army outside of it. The knights do need to learn how to use the lances, and she's the only one who knows how to teach them. So she feels compelled, like, even though delivering the lances was a cover and she did her real work of vindicating Sturm, now she actually feels obligated to help the people here.
Mm-hmm.
So she stayed.
Yeah. Also, her armor looks so sick. If you look at the cover of Winter Night, it's just like insanely cool looking. This is one of those things where it's like, it's not Solamnic armor, but they definitely made her look like a real hot fantasy cover chick. And that's what you do in the 80s.
Armor that perhaps a golden general would wear?
Perhaps indeed the Golden General might in fact want to wear such armor. It's wild because like when you look at the different portrayals of Laurana through the books, you can see that some of them go a little off brand. Like when we'll talk about that when we get to some of these scenes because I don't want to spoil it yet. So Laurana's got brand new armor, which is really, really cool and definitely comes into play quite often. Alfred and Sturm have a moment together where, like, you know, Alfred's like, look, dude, you have been vindicated. And in recognition of your deeds and bravery and courage, you are hereby declared a Knight of Solamnia. Do you consider yourself worthy of this great honor? And Sturm's like, no, my lord, but I most humbly accept it and vow I shall devote my life to making myself worthy. That's such a Sturmian answer right there. I love it. He's like, look, dude, I'm not good enough for this, which is such a contrast to Derek, who's like, I deserve everything. And Sturm's like, no, this is my birthright, and I still don't deserve it. I love it, though. This description of Laurana is so sick. Like, her honey-colored hair streamed from beneath a silver helm. Intricate gold designs glinted on her breastplate, and her soft black leather skirt, slid up the side to allow freedom of movement, brushed the tips of her boots. Her face was pale and grim, for the situation in Palanthas and the tower itself was dark and without hope. Gunther was basically like, I heard that they're going to attack, so I want you to come back. Because having the daughter of my allies being off in the middle of war seems like a real bad idea. Like, I don't want you to die, so you got to come home. And Laurana's like, no, that's not going to happen. She's like, you guys can't get food from the freaking Palanthas. You guys have the giant army outside, and I've got all the dragonlances, and I know how to use it. So I'm going to teach you how to do it. But they like slog their way through the pass to get to there. And the food they have is only for a few days. And the knights are like, they look at the lances and they're like, these are big, gigantic, like 12-foot long poles that do nothing for us because they're meant to be mounted on horses or on dragonback, not meant to be held by normal people.
You could probably use them as like big spears from like a phalanx spear.
Right.
But that's not how these knights are prepared to fight.
Yeah, or to put a big tablecloth on when they need to put out the white flag of surrender, right? Like,
we learned that the storm the night before closed. Even if Laurana wanted to return at this point, she couldn't because the storm closed
the pass.
They're snowed in, basically. They're stuck here.
Yeah. They've got food for a few days. And Sturm is like, look, dude, even with the lances, this is what he says. This is awesome. It's like, Laurana, he said gently, taking her cold hand in his, I don't think the High Lord will even bother to send dragons. If we cannot reopen the supply lines, the tower will fall because there'll be only the dead left to defend it. So the dragonlances lay in the courtyard, unused, forgotten, their bright silver buried beneath the snow.
That's such a good last line. It's ominous. And just 3 chapters, maybe, when the Dragonlancers revealed and it shatters the White Stone, we're like, oh man, they have the magical items they need to save the world. And then just a couple chapters ahead, and it's like, hey, they're just items. And even magical items without people to wield them is not going to do it for you. So we're back to dark times.
It's like, look, dude, can I eat those lances? No. Do not care. It's kind of a little heavy. It's a little crazy, but there's also an interesting callback here to when Goldmoon is telling Alistan about the gods, how it's the gem that's been forgotten in the woods and left and covered and everything. But it's the hope that is just sitting there. These lances are the hope that are just lying forgotten in the field, covered in snow and just abandoned. But it's the hope of the gods that they have to come back to later.
As we were saying before, we referenced like hope and faith are almost synonyms. And the tower would never fall if held by men of faith. And there's just not a lot of faith in these knights anymore. They've kind of lost it. That's been repeated multiple times, right? When Fizban and Taz visited Lord Gunther in his home, and he talked about, we once reached out to the gods and we were so faithful, and now we're not. And anytime Alistan is talking to Lord Gunther, again, it's like, well, you say interesting things, and we used to believe, but, now we don't. Like, there's just not a lot of faith in the knights anymore.
Nope.
And that's fair. When when your world has been destroyed explicitly because the gods said, you guys did bad. We can't really tell you how or why, but we're going to leave now. And there's no indication about what you can do to get us to return or what exactly, the whole sins on the head of your children thing comes in real strong here. The people living today did nothing wrong. They never did anything wrong. They didn't. Whatever sin is that was committed, it was committed 300 years ago, and everyone in this world is still being punished for it. It's wild.
Yeah, it's crazy, but this is definitely an ominous setup chapter. This is like not looking good for our heroes here. But man, what a way to end this chapter. We are going into some real heavy parts.
We're quickly reaching the end of the book. And so it is ramping up. I think we're on the ramp and we're going towards the climax of this story. And it's a climax.
Oh, yeah. It's real cool.
Our next episode will start with chapter 11, A Kinder's Curiosity, The Knights Ride Forth. I want to thank everyone again for listening. Thank you, Shivam, for being with us today. Shivam, tell me about your podcast.
Oh, yeah. You can also find me on Shivam Wheeler Love Magic, which is a show where I talk about with my buddy Ben Wheeler about every single set in Magic the Gathering, and the Casual Magic Podcast, where I sit and talk about where I interview people about Magic in and around the game. But it's just really whatever I feel like talking about. Like I had Tad Williams on talking about his newest book. I've had other people. It's a lot of fun. And then, of course, the Chronicles of Dragons podcast. I love doing this. John loves doing this. We would do it more often if we could, but these things take a lot of time and we both have families. So, but that being said, thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Chronicles of Dragonlance.
Bye. Yeah, I just got to be in the right. But the problem is when we start talking, I start leaning in because I get excited.
Yeah, it's fine. Just don't, whatever. It's been fine so far. Nobody's complained.
No one's complained. So
King Can Corn or whatever was supposed to be the Korean guy.
Yeah.
But they just spelled it very bizarrely.
How am I trying to say here?